Good morning, everyone. Liz here from California, Zone 9B. Just wanted to give you a little garden update as we are ending our summer and approaching fall. There's always so many changes in the garden. As you all know, always a little tidying up to do and work to be done as we transition into the cooler season. Different plants like the cooler weather, and some of our heat-loving plants are saying goodbye. But that's okay because change is always good. So I just kind of wanted to walk you through my garden and show you what's going on and all the different little changes that are taking place. As you can see, my beautiful sweet potato vine is thriving in this weather. It really enjoyed the heat wave, although the heat wave is over. And as you can see, my marigolds, they survived the heat wave too, but they're kind of getting, I think, a little summer burnout. I try to deadhead them as best as I can, and then I just throw the little seed pods in the garden so they can grow next year. But I admit they look a little tired. What I do every fall is, once the summer annuals are done blooming, I put tulip bulbs in here. I just bought these at Costco yesterday, so I'm super excited to put these in the pots. For me, growing tulips in pots, they just always do better. That way, when they're done, I can locate the bulbs better and remove them and plant something else. And yes, this year I am going to grow alliums as well. I've never had a lot of luck with alliums. What I've noticed is the bulbs get very mushy if they're watered too much. So now that I have a little experience and lessons learned under my belt, I am going to approach planting alliums a little bit different this year. So hopefully I'll be more successful for the spring next year. I'm planning to plant my alliums back here behind this vintage bathtub. What I'm going to do is put 3 nursery pots right there and put 3 alliums in each pot. That way, when they bloom, all you'll see is the allium bulbs. You won't see the pot or the foliage. A lot of times when alliums bloom, the foliage starts to die off while the allium is still in full bloom. So this way you won't see that. All you'll see from where I'm standing is allium bulbs, allium blooms. So that's my approach for fall and spring next year with my alliums. I think that's a really good idea. And I'm not sure if my strawberries are going to come back. They just got fried in this heat wave, but now that the weather's cooling down, well, maybe it looks like they'll come back for a little bit, but we are going to be done with strawberries soon, so I guess that doesn't matter. If you'll notice, I did plant a yucca or a yucca, however you pronounce it, in here. I think it looks just kind of clean. And I'm growing a scarlet runner bean right here, and I'm hoping it'll kind of grow up my heart-shaped trellis. And look at my beautiful Elizabeth bougainvillea. It's making another flush of flowers, or I should say bracts. You know, these really aren't flowers. The flower is that little tiny thing right there in the center. That's the flower. The purple things are called bracts. Those are actually colored leaves. I just thought that was kind of interesting. But it's doing really well. My passion flower vine that's growing over those cattle panels, look at how big it's getting. It's actually growing up there. I'm not quite sure how long this is going to last, being that the weather's starting to cool down. But I do have some fruit. I think that's kind of exciting. See, there's a little fruit right there. And there's another one up there. However, now that we are starting to cool down here in California, I'm not sure if those fruits will ripen up, but it's still fun just to see all the changes and what a plant can do. I just loved that passion flower vine on the cattle panels. I'm hoping that when the weather really cools down that all the leaves don't fall off, because I just love that look. It is always a little sad when we do transition into different seasons, but change is always fun as well. I think my petunias are liking this little bit of a cooler weather. They survived the heat wave, but now they're really starting to thrive. I have petunias planted in top of that strawberry pot. I got that at a garage sale for $5. My vinka is looking as lovely as always. My Canterbury bells, wow, they're still holding on. I will definitely plant these again next year. I just keep deadheading them as the flowers die. We'll see how they do in the fall. And speaking of petunias, loving this bit of a cooler weather, look at my petunias in my hanging baskets. Absolutely beautiful. This is where I have my tea and unwind from the world and just get my sanity back. It seems like it was just a month ago that I planted these, and I can't believe how massive they are now. These are petunias I just bought at the big box store, nothing special. Look at how big they've gotten. And behind the petunias, there's actually 4 petunias, a purple, a white, another purple, and like a hot pink. And behind those is 4 vinka plants. Just 4, that's it. Just 4 vinka plants, and they all spread out so nicely. I'll definitely be growing more annuals in these vintage bathtubs. I used to have perennials in here, a butterfly bush, some yarrow, and some type of a pestamon grass. But I really, really like growing annuals in my vintage bathtubs so much better. It's just such a beautiful pop of color. And another gardener suggested that I just keep growing annuals in here and make it seasonal. And I agree. I think that was Pam from Flower Patch Farmhouse up in the California mountains. She suggested that I just keep annuals in here, seasonal annuals, and I think that's what I'm going to do, because this year, oh my goodness, this was just a winner for me in my garden. Moving right along. My Autumn Joy sedum is looking so beautiful and lush. And it's called Autumn Joy because, you guessed it, they bloom in the autumn. They're not real showy flowers, but they're definitely pretty, and they add a lot of interest to the garden, because even after fall, when these are done blooming, they keep a rustish colored color on them, and it really adds a lot of interest. They start out kind of a lime green like they're doing now, then they turn pink, and then they turn like an autumn rust color. So I really enjoy having those in my garden. And over in this area in my garden, remember when I used to have a plumbago in those tires? Well, I just thought that the plumbago, as beautiful and as much as I loved it, it was just too big for the space, and I found myself pruning it back to control it. And what I was doing was compromising a lot of the blooms. So instead, I put this, oh, I forgot what it's called, but it kind of looks like the yucca, but only it's like some sort of a palm. And eventually it will get really big and outgrow this tire container, but that's okay, because that's not going to happen anytime soon. And I just love the look. I think it added some texture and interest to this corner. And it fits there perfectly. So I think that was a good choice with a few little marigolds planted in there. So I couldn't be more pleased with this change in my garden. More vincas down below. I'm just wondering, how long is the vincas gonna last? I just love the creeping Jenny. I love how it's growing out of that little tea kettle and the pot behind it, and look at it on the ground. I just love the lushness of it, the beautiful green lush colors. You know, sometimes we don't always have to plant flowers in our garden. Sometimes the foliage adds a lot of beauty as well, like my sweet potato vine. Speaking of sweet potato vines, I'm going to take you to the back of my garden and show you a beautiful sweet potato vine that I planted back here. On one of my videos, I made a thriller, filler, spiller video, and you should see how big that pot has gotten. Oh, before I go back there, let me just quickly address this. I have some marigolds. I recently did this vintage bathtub over, and my idea was to grow another main lantana in the center, but then I planted some other stuff in there just to fill up the tub while the main lantana grows. And here is a Super Tunia Vista bubblegum, and I filled in some marigolds and more lantana. This is a different kind. I'm not really quite sure, but I like the different purples. And right here is a milkweed. It's not a native milkweed, but nonetheless, it's a milkweed, the kind that you get at the big box store. Okay, let me take you to the back of my garden and show you my zinnias and my huge sweet potato vine. You're not going to believe how big it got. More petunias down here. Yeah, they're just loving this cooler weather. Okay. I have a few zinnias here. And look at my dahlia. I've discovered that dahlias in my garden zone 9 in California, they don't like full sun at all. I gotta deadhead this one. Just pop that right off. Yeah, my dahlias here in California, they definitely like a little relief from the sun, that's for sure. Oh my goodness, there's so much to show you. Look at this huge Mexican sunflower. It just grew back from a volunteer seed. And my verbena is coming back from seed. This is the second flush of flowers. In the early summer, I cut that back all the way to the ground, and it just popped back up again from the roots. Look at that beautiful zinnia. And I have some corn. The ears aren't real big, but it was sure fun to grow. It doesn't get a whole lot of sun back here, but that's okay. It looks pretty. I grow it because I think it just looks pretty. Look at all my zinnias. But first, I'm just going to keep my promise and show you my big sweet potato vine. Just a few weeks ago, I made a video about a thriller, filler, and spiller container. Look at how massive this got. You can't even see the flowers inside. My thriller is supposed to be this plant right here, but I think I'm going to replace that and put a grass in there. You can barely see my marigolds, and you can barely see my little petunias. Well, maybe on this side you can. So pretty, but look at that massive sweet potato vine. I'm thinking it's going to grow all the way out to me. I just love the lime green foliage. A lot of my zinnias this year flopped. I don't know if any of you have experienced that. I'm thinking maybe it was the extensive heat that we had. Maybe now that it's cooling down a little bit, they won't flop as much. They're still beautiful. They're still pretty. I'm not complaining, just making an observation that they really flopped a lot this year. And even when I picked them for the vases, it seemed like the flower stems weren't real sturdy, but that's okay. The colors are certainly pretty. I just grew all these zinnias from seed. And over here in my garden, I'm planning to put a water fountain right there. I just haven't gotten around to getting it yet. Look at another sedum autumn joy. These things are so easy to grow. And even when it's not flowering, I just think the leaves are the shape of the leaves are so interesting looking and very different. In my opinion, I think it just adds a lot of uniqueness and interest to a garden. Yeah, I can't wait to get that fountain. It'll be right where I'm standing now. And I did plant all this lily turf recently, right here underneath my white Natchez crepe myrtle tree. If you're ever thinking about getting a crepe myrtle tree, I really highly suggest getting the white one. This has been blooming all summer. Crepe myrtle trees usually put on one show and then the flowers fall off. But this has been holding on to flowers for a couple months now. So I'm so pleased that I planted the white one. And over here I do have another Super Tunia Vista bubblegum peeking over in this corner. This one isn't in as much sun as the one in my vintage bathtub, so I think this one is just doing a little bit better. It's a little bit more vibrant. And behind that I have a blue salvia. I don't remember the name of that one, but I just love the way the pink flowers contrast with the blue and then the purple verbena. Right here is a pineapple sage. It's not blooming just yet, but those flowers will be red. But if you'll notice, my Gara is starting to bloom. Look at that. The flowers just remind me of little ballerinas. So dainty and delicate. I love Gara. It just grows like a weed here in California. Here's another change I made. My poor succulent barrel fried in the heat wave. All the succulents I planted died, so I replaced them with a more hardy succulent and cacti. I forget the names of these things, but I know these are agaves. Oh my goodness, they were so expensive. And these are desert roses. One of my viewers suggested I planted those in my succulent barrel. So I took your advice, and these seem to be doing much better when it was hot. So I know next summer these will also just thrive. I like the way it looks. They're a little bit bigger than my smaller succulents, but I love the colors. So I'm really happy the way this turned out. And I'm told these desert roses produce beautiful, vibrant blooms. But yeah, these agaves, they are not cheap at all. The larger ones, like in the 5-gallon containers, are $50. These little ones were even $9.99. I think that's kind of expensive, but I think it's well worth it. I'm really happy the way this turned out. A nice little change. So with the heat wave and things dying, I would say that change is always good. It always gives you an opportunity to try something new. And this year my fig tree, the figs were a little bit smaller, but they've never been sweeter. There isn't any figs on my fig tree right now because, oh wait, there is one. What a nice little morning surprise. These were the sweetest figs I've ever grown. Oh yeah, there's a couple of them over there. This is a dwarf fig tree called Miss Figgy. I think it's a really cute play on words like Miss Piggy, but Miss Figgy. And this thing is pretty tall. I would say about 5 feet. But the figs were so delicious. And in another month or so, when it gets cold, the leaves will fall, and then that's when I'll probably prune it. So I would say my garden's looking beautiful still. It survived the heat wave, and as we transition into fall, I have lots of fun plans with all of my bulb planting and whatnot. I hope you enjoyed my garden update today, and I hope you have a beautiful day in your garden too. Thanks for watching.